In this lesson, we're going to talk about how long will it take you to start making money on your blog, which is a question we get all the time. So what I did in this video is basically go through the different steps of blogging, and we're going to talk about the approximate time that you should be spending on each step. The first one, which would be our module 1 in our blogging course, is finding your niche. I think a lot of people have already done this, but some people come into the course, they're new to blogging altogether, and so they have to work through those worksheets and figure out what they should be blogging about. But the reality is that should probably only take you 1 to 2 weeks.
And if you get stuck, feel free to, send us an email, or if you're trying to narrow it down between 1 or 3 niches, feel free to send us an email and we'll give you our opinion on what we think that you should base your blog on.
And I want to add with these time examples that I'm giving you, that this is based on you're not doing this as a full-time job. You might already have a full-time job, and so you're doing this on the side, on the weekends, during the evening. So this isn't you're working full-time on your website. This is you have something else going on and you're trying to build the blogging business. The next step in blogging is basically building that blog, starting from getting your hosting and installing the WordPress theme. And that should really take you, unlike Steve's 5 minutes to getting everything set up video, this will take you probably 2 to 4 weeks if you're plugging away at it on a daily, every other day basis. This is from getting the hosting until the blog is basically ready to launch.
Yeah, and this kind of depends on what your expectations are. In reality, starting a blog the blog website itself doesn't have to be overly complicated. You just need to have something up that looks okay. And so is that how you classify this 2 to 4 weeks?
Yeah, so I'm thinking if you were able to dedicate like 30 minutes a night maybe, or several hours on a weekend, within 2 to 4 weeks you should have something that's launchable. And we'll talk about this in a few slides down about how to get this to happen for you. Creating content, by the way, Bob Ross, one of my favorite people, creating content, that's something that's ongoing. You can be creating content before you even have a blog, before your blog is even ready to go. So I would say that creating content is something that there's basically no time frame on, and there's basically no limit on how much you can create or how much time you can actually spend on this. And then, the big thing is, how do you get readers? How do you build that audience? If you get your niche, get your blog set up, and start putting content on the blog. And when I say putting content on your blog, we're talking about a post a week, nothing more than that. In 6 months, you should have had, I don't know how many people are in this picture.
You should set up your email marketing also. You forgot to mention that.
Well, I put that in the setting up the blog. To
Okay.
me, that's part of that getting started point is, getting your email sign-up sheets on your blog and that sort of thing. You should have more than 20 readers within 6 months if you've done all those other things. And the core part of building that audience is having the content. So you need to be creating that content on a weekly basis to be able to build the audience. And we'll go through some examples of that too in a minute. And then if you're doing so from day 1 to a year, you should be generating some sort of revenue if you are creating content on a regular basis. Now, that seems very simple. I tried to really make it very basic, but basically getting your niche. If you're still stuck in this, ask a friend. Everyone can join a focus group. We have a spreadsheet for that. You should have gotten a link for that when you joined the course. So if you're not in a focus group already, get in that focus group so you can get feedback. Email us, as Steve said a couple minutes ago. We can provide you feedback. We can do a keyword search for you. We can help guide you with finding that topic that you want to write about. And then finally, take a risk. It's okay to start something and then change your mind and realize that maybe you don't want to do it, because all you need to do is switch out the content. The site itself probably doesn't have to change that much. And this is where I think, Steve, you and I see people getting stuck a lot of the time, where they're basically afraid to take that first step because they don't want to fail, which of course, who does want to fail? You want your first idea to be a home run. But I would just recommend getting it out there. And, if you think you have that topic and maybe we've said, hey, yeah, thumbs up, launch it, get going.
And blogging isn't that risky in that we're not talking about that much money here either. And so you can always take even your exact same framework for your blog and pivot, as you've done over the years a few times, right, Tony?
Absolutely. With setting up the blog, and once again, this is where people tend to get stuck. And I know this is tough. If you are not a tech person, it is going to take you watching those videos, probably probably 2 or 3 times to get set up. But remember, every single thing doesn't have to be perfect. The colors don't have to be exactly the right color. Maybe there's something that you don't like where it's sitting on the site. No one's going to notice that. And I'm going to show you some examples in a minute where you're going to see this is very true. And even bloggers like Steve and myself and other people, we've all tweaked our blogs over time. The blogs that we have today do not look anything like the blogs we started with. And I'm going to show you some of those right now, I think. Yes, so I don't know if you guys are familiar with Young House Love. They are a hugely popular home remodel site. They actually have products in, I think, Lowe's or Home Depot. They have books, wildly successful. The image on the left, that was one of their first iterations of their website. As you can see, totally different than the image on the right, which is what their website looks like today. Pat Flynn, I know you guys know who he is. Once again, actually, I think I started following him when his website looked like this. Once again, cluttery, lots of information in that sidebar. But basically, if you look at the left versus the right, what his site looks like today, totally, I mean, he's basically, I hadn't been to his site in a little bit. I was shocked when I saw what his site looked like today. I mean, completely revamped his website. This is mine. Can we just talk about the first that I'm like 110 months pregnant in this in the header?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I told my designer, I was like, make me less pregnant. That's terrible. But that pink, it's like blinding. I'm not sure what I was thinking. But this is there's a very top one, the sunflower. That's my very first header. Lasted me about 3 or 4 months. And then I went to the cartooning of my kids because I didn't want their actual faces out. But yeah, I mean, that's painful to look at for me today. But you know what? That blog got traffic.
I don't think it looks that bad, actually.
The pink, that pink was on both sides.
No, if I just look at this rectangle right here.
Yeah, I couldn't get the whole thing on the slide. But you know, something that I was going to point out, and I think it's on Steve's slide as well, but as you can see, I still had a place for people to sign up for email. I still had a search bar. I had like the components that you needed. It just, the design is very different and I think a little too cluttery for my personal taste. But that site got a lot of traffic and launched me to where I am today. And then we have Steve's site. Back when, I guess, beige was your favorite color.
Yeah, I have no idea why I chose this color, to be honest with you.
I also think I think you've used that "Dear Boss, I Quit" image in like 16 blog posts.
Yes, this is the way I'd like to remember my daughter, like the little baby. So,
but once again, I mean, if you look at, because things have shifted, because blogging changes, I mean, I think, do you have a place for people to sign up for your email? I can't see it on the screen. Maybe below your RSS. It was this
little link. This is actually before I even was doing email, because it was back when RSS was the big deal, way back in the day. And so RSS was actually my the big way I was getting readers. And then this space, as I mentioned earlier, was for ads, because I kind of jumped to monetization a little bit too quickly.
Yeah, but as you can see over time, Steve's, like, his homepage now, super focused on getting people on that email list because that's what drives a lot of his revenue. You can't not see that when you get on his site today. But that site that you started with, the beige beauty, is what got you to where you are today, right?
That's correct, yes.
People read that, people signed up for your RSS. It worked, even though it wasn't like, when we look back on it, we're like, that could use a little tweaking, but it doesn't matter. It's still, the content was great, and that's what's important. Now, about that creating content, here are some things that I did, and I don't know how you did it, Steve, so I'll share what I did. When I first started blogging, I would set aside time to write every week. For me, it was early in the morning. I would get up before my kids were awake, and I would spend time writing. Anywhere between like 30 and 45 minutes a day was just dedicated to writing, not doing anything else. I used to, I think I had a cell phone when I started blogging, although I don't think you could take notes on it. I had a little like 5x7 spiral notebook next to my bed. And when I would get ideas, like in the middle of the night, or I'd wake up for something, I would always write the post idea down. And I think the important thing to remember is you don't need hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pieces of content. I think you and I both know people who have successful blogs with like 100 pieces of content on it total.
Yep.
And so be thinking about that quality of your content, those long form pieces of content, incorporating video, amazing images, over trying to get your blog filled with 200 posts right away. And then I think something that's really important, and Steve, you're really good at this, is creating that schedule and sticking to the blogging schedule. I think you write every
Sunday morning. Yeah, I have a nice 4-hour block which I dedicate to it.
And I know most of you guys probably have full-time jobs, but if you could carve out some piece of your day or some piece of the weekend where you can dedicate to just creating that content, the content is what's going to build your audience, keep people on your website, have you discovered in search. So that's really the most important piece of this, is creating that content. So carve out some time in your week to make that a huge priority, even more so than like tweaking your design and things like that.
I think the setting aside a time to write every week is probably the most important bullet point on here. As long as you're on a schedule, it'll make sure that you make forward progress. If you don't have a schedule and you're like, maybe I'll write today, maybe I won't, then it will tend to make it much more difficult for you to pump out content on a consistent basis.
Absolutely. And that's why I do this now on my phone with just the Apple Notes, whatever the app. I think it comes with your phone pre-installed, actually. But I actually write down ideas when I get them. So if I'm working on something and I'm like, I need to turn this into a post, or if I try a new recipe, I always write myself a note, because when I sit down to write, sometimes I'm like, I have no idea what to write about. I've written about everything because I've been writing so long. But then I can just look in this note stock, and all of a sudden I'm like, I took 3 pictures when I was doing this, and I think I can turn that into a blog post, or that's an idea. And so combining that, if you don't always feel inspired to write, having some sort of running list of topic ideas is really helpful for when you get that quality time to write. You can basically look through your list and say, okay, well, today I'm writing about XYZ.
Yeah, I actually have a long list. It's in a Google Doc of different topics that I come up with, either through research using the SEO tools, or just something that happened to me recently in life or whatnot, where I just kind of quickly put it down on the Google Doc and revisit it when it's time to write.
All right. And then building an audience. This is one of the harder parts about blogging, because you do have to develop a readership and develop visitors to your blog. The first thing is let people know you're blogging. I think most people in this group probably have a couple hundred Facebook friends. Don't be afraid. You're not trying to sell them toothpaste or some other network marketing thing. You're just saying, hey, I have free content out here and you might be interested. So don't be afraid to promote it. When I started blogging, I didn't tell anyone I was blogging. I'm not sure why, but my blog probably would have grown quicker had I let people know what I was doing. And promote it on social media. So make sure you've got a Facebook page, an Instagram page, so you can start putting that content, because that content creation is the hardest part. Once you create that content, throw stuff out there on social media so people can find you. And we have lessons in the course that talk about how to create those images and do that in a simple way. Write guest posts. It's harder to write guest posts today, I would say, Steve. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. But there's actually that class list also. So if you guys are blogging about similar topics, you can potentially share your audiences and help each other build that way too.
Which is how one of the core ways that my blog grew in the beginning was that I did a lot of guest posting, and I tried to network with other bloggers as much as possible. Get on podcasts, which is similar to the writing posts. If you can get on a podcast, that's obviously something that's relevant. And if you're positioning yourself as an expert, then getting on a podcast might not be that difficult. Collaborate with people in this class or other people that are bloggers that you know about. Really important, go through all of those SEO lessons. That's module 3 in the course, right? Is that module 3?
I think so, yeah.
I just said that off the top of my head. I hope it's module 3. It's 3 or 4. Go through those SEO lessons. They're all under 10 minutes. You could get through them easily in a week and start putting into action all the things that Steve talks about in those lessons, because those are critical for your blog to grow being found through SEO. And then something that Steve and I did not do initially is build your email list. So when you're building your website, you're creating it, make sure that there's opportunity for people to sign up for that email list, because that in the end is going to, one, it's a way to capture visitors and turn them into readers. And then 2, those people are your most loyal fans and followers. And so you want to have an email list that you can market to and cultivate over time. So making money. affiliate opportunities, I say immediate, obviously you have to have, as Steve said with Amazon, you have to have some content on your site. But once you start putting that content on there, you should be able to insert some relevant affiliate links for people. Once you get going and you're starting, you have some content on there, you're getting some visitors, I would say within 6 months, you might be able to launch a digital product or a course idea, because at that point you've seen what works. Because if you're doing that regularly, if you're putting out a piece of content a week, you would have 25 pieces of content on your website. You're going to start to see trends, and you're going to start to see, hey, this post got more traction, or I have some SEO, a post is doing well in SEO. So you can then start to think about creating some sort of digital product or course based on what you're seeing with the trends on your own site. And then really, it's probably going to be about a year before you can qualify for an ad network or sponsored content. But that just depends. Some people start a blog and in 6 months they have a lot of traffic because it just takes off. And that's one of those things where you just never know. You could have something go viral, you could rank for something really quickly, and your blog would grow faster. But I would say realistically, within a year, you should definitely be at that level to qualify for an ad network or start taking sponsored opportunities.
Right. I mean, you could have a viral video on Barbie cakes, for example, just completely take off. So.
And then Wilton will sponsor you, which is what happened to me actually from that. From that, I did. I got a deal with Wilton for like a year, which is awesome. And then I was starting to look at sort of facts and blogging statistics. It's funny. No one will put out like legitimate blogging statistics, like how many blogs make money. I think the closest thing I found was a pro blogger survey from 2014, which at that point, Instagram and Pinterest really aren't what they are today. So I know that's changed, especially in the influencer world. But I was looking up, how many people, how many blogs are there? And there's like a gabillion. I don't even know. The number was very high. But I started thinking, why do blog? A lot of people start a blog, but not a lot of people make money from a blog. And the common reasons that I think that blogs fail are that, they don't treat it like a job. If you want to make money at a job, you have to treat it like a job. And like for Steve and I, blogging is our full-time job. This is what we do. We have schedules, we stick to them. We have deadlines that we create for ourselves. Even when we launched this blogging course, like we had deadlines that we created for that. We had things we wanted to get done before we launched. So you can't treat this as a hobby and expect to make money. Now you can be a hobby blogger and blog just as an outlet or for fun, and that's great. But the money doesn't correlate with that very well. The other reason why I think blogs fail is that you have to be passionate about it, and this doesn't mean that you have to absolutely Steve does not love handkerchiefs that I know. Maybe he, I don't know, maybe he does. But the reality is that you're going to be writing about a topic once a week for how long have you been blogging, Steve? 10, 11 years?
2009. Yeah. 11 years.
So you have to like what you're writing about. It's hard to find the ability to continue on, especially when you get hit with like a Google update and maybe your blog drops in rank, or you lose traffic, or your Pinterest account gets marked as spam for a week. You have to be passionate about that to fight through some of the things that could happen to you as a blogger. And if you're not, then when things don't go your way, or it gets tough, or you get stuck in something, it's easier to just give up. So I think passion, and it doesn't have to be, thing you care about the most, but it has to be something that you like enough to keep doing even when it gets hard. The biggest reason why I think blogs fail is that people get caught up in everything else outside of the content. They get caught up on like talking to people on Facebook and, trying to get their Instagram thing going. And what happens is their content stinks. And at the end of the day, people are coming to your blog for your content, and you're competing. And these days you're competing against all sorts of big sites. Your content has to be awesome. And on top of that, it has to be original. And we talked about this last week in the blog identity lesson. If you didn't watch that lesson, go back and watch it. People, at the end of the day, people come to your blog for you. They want to learn from you. People, that as silly as that Barbie cake video was, people liked that video because I wasn't in a kitchen studio, clearly a professional cake decorator, making a cake. I was a stay-at-home mom, massively pregnant, and I made a cake, and it actually turned out pretty cool. And so people that watched that felt like, hey, I can relate to her. If she can do it, I can do it. So that's really important. Be original in your content, and then promote yourself. It's okay to promote yourself. online. Some people just don't do that, and I don't understand. Get out there, promote yourself, talk about it. And then another thing that I was thinking about last night is that don't outsource everything too soon. We get questions about how to hire writers and things like that. And while I think Steve and I have both outsourced a lot of things on our blog, initially we didn't outsource anything. We were doing everything on our own, and we basically learned the blogging landscape before we hired people out. And so when we hired people to do very specific things, we had a really great understanding of what we needed from them, and we could train them in a way to where we got what we needed. So it's really important to do those things for yourself first before you get out there and get other people doing them for you.
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand what you're outsourcing, which is why you need to learn how to do things yourself first, and then you can outsource and know what to expect to get out of the people that you're hiring.
And I think, Steve, you've heard these stories to people that hire like an SEO firm or a Facebook ads firm, and then they get burned because they don't actually have enough information to know if the person they're hiring is qualified.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with hiring out. We've both done it. I just think you need to have a baseline knowledge before you pay someone else to do it for you.
I will be right back.